Alright, this is Spider-Man Team Up 126, which might be one of the more unique issues, as it features a story where Satan's son teams up with Luke Cage's. There is no Spider-Man whatsoever in that story. Then we have a backup feature, which is Spider-Man and Hulk. But I am obviously more interested in the other one, which is also our first one. We are leading with Satan's Son and Luke Cage's. This is written by DeMatteis, who was writing most of Spider-Man Team Up at the time, but he was also writing Defenders. And the issues of Spider-Man Team Up often interlink with his run on Defenders. Sometimes it is a little thing, like we see the aftermath of a Defender story in Spider-Man Team Up, or we see a villain from Spider-Man Team Up in Defenders. And then there are times like this where what we have is something that should be considered a main part of his Defenders run. We have a subplot going on with Satan's Son in Defenders. He has taken a leave of absence from the team because his love for his teammates, the Cat, is becoming too much for him to handle. He is worried about his dark side and what it would do to the Cat. This picks up on Satan's Son just after his departure in Defenders 116. And this is set before the Sanctuary story arc. A great two-parter with Satan's Son trying to find himself. This is also before Defenders 118. Another great Satan's Son issue. In fact, this story is even referenced in that one. This is only 10 or 12 pages long, so the pacing is quite rapid, and the story itself isn't very deep or complicated. But we do get our classic misunderstanding fight almost instantly with Satan's Son and Luke Cage's. I like that they stop fighting when they recognise each other. They know who the other is. They were both on the Defenders together back in the Steve Gerbil days. That is something I like here though. This is a stealth Defenders story. We have a current member, Satan's Son, interacting with an ex-member, Luke Cage's. And I always liked Luke Cage's in Defenders, so it is nice to get to see him in what I consider a Defenders story again. The two of them go about investigating a dead body of one of Luke Cage's acquaintances. And it is a quirky little pair here. Two characters that don't necessarily go together, or anyone would think to put together. But it is a pretty fun contrast we have. We get some characterisation and little arcs. Again, limited by the length of the story, but I do think this successfully manages to tell a complete story even with its limitations. The two heroes discover the sons of Santa-ish are involved. They are behind this whole thing. They want to steal Satan's Son's trident to use its evil demon energies to empower the evil demon who they worship, Santa-ish. This little cult, the Sons of Santa-ish, they are rather minor Doctor Strange enemies from the Bronze Age. And although they don't have many appearances, I tend to think of them incorrectly as being more prominent in the Marvel Universe than they are. They come from the period where Doctor Strange wore a superhero costume, Roger Thomas and John Coleman. I think this might actually remain as their final appearance. Then I got my hopes up that Hulk was ganning to interact with Luke Cage's again, because I loved their dynamic in Defenders. And I loved the idea of Hulk sharing Twinkies with Luke Cage's. Well, this was a disaster. It's not even Twinkies. It is some Rubik's Cube wannabe puzzle. Disappointing, to say the least. But I still do recommend this story. I have complained a lot about this not being included in the Defenders Epic Collections, and I haven't shown it here. I hope most of you can understand that this surely was an oversight. This is part of Satan's Son's ongoing story. This is obviously referred to in issues of Defenders. And then even Luke Cage's is a character that is, or was, once relevant to Defenders. Not including this is absurd, especially when you compare it to the other Epic collections that find space to include 300 pages of Captain America and Punisher Blood and Glory. Neat little story, gives both the characters just enough to do, and I like it. Also, it works to discredit when Steve Englehart revealed Satan's son was actually Santa-ish son. Asinine stuff, that. Nobody referred to it ever again. But then we have the second story, which I care for less. This is written by Jean-Marc Shooter, and it is apparently a reprint from a newspaper strip. I guess the most interesting thing is the art, because the art is done by a name I don't recognise. I looked them up, and this is indeed the only Marvel work he is credited with. And to be honest with you, the art, it's not too bad. Maybe it's the case that Jean-Marc Shooter was micromanaging the guy to redo everything until it was good enough. Or there is a theory online that it was a notable manga artist under a pseudonym. If that is the case, I doubt we will ever find out who they are. Maybe if some people remember this story, we would. But their art is passable stuff. This is competent out style. It's nothing amazing, but it works. The story isn't that good. It is overwritten by Jean-Marc Shooter, and the only part of the story I like is this scene between Peter Parker and David Banner. You have to look on the bright side though. At least Jean-Marc Shooter isn't having David Banner be gang raped by gay men in the showers of his local YMCA. This is a weird format for Spider-Man team-up. I think there is one or maybe two other issues like this. It's not a terrible idea, really. Or maybe I am being fooled by the notion of having team-ups as diverse as Satan's Son and Luke Cage's. If there were more Spider-Man team-up issues with pairings like that, I would be a lot more into the series as a whole. There is only so much you can do with Spider-Man teaming up with a different hero every month. So, something like Satan's Son teaming up with Luke Cage's is a breath of fresh air, and I think there is some genuine quality to that story. The second story is more disposable, but you are at least seeing an artist that you won't see anywhere else. And Spider-Man and Hulk has more mainstream appeal than Satan's Son and Luke Cage's. I'll have to say this is a 7 thumbs up issue.